Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here on Ancluiche with me, Seamus Brady, your host, and for this one I'm joined by Sinéad Farrell from the 42. We are going to run through the Allianz Football League predictions, our official predictions for 2024. We have divisions 1, 2, 3 and 4 to run through. The format that we're going to do is we're going to list it as 8-1 across the 4 divisions, and then we're going to give each other's 8-1 and then debate them a little bit and question each other's decisions a little bit as well on certain topics. But yeah, it's going to be pretty fun to get into. Sinead, we're here on the 23rd as we record this. League kicks off on the weekend. Looking forward to it?
Yeah, massively. I think that it'll have a job trying to top the dramatics of last weekend, and I don't think that we're going to see too many fireworks. I think possibly in Division 1 it's going to be a bit of a slow burner. Because of the split season and the nature of it, there's a temptation there for managers to sort of de-emphasize the leagues a small bit and preserve their lads for the championship. You see Kerry are resting the Clifford brothers for the first round. I'm not sure how long they're going to keep them up. I think they're only kind of back running at this stage. Seems like they're being just sort of weaned back in, which is probably no harm. They had a long season last year with kind of Foss's season bleeding into Kerry's. And I think they probably did need a bit of a break, and they seem like they're kind of getting that now. And actually, I was just reading, Colin Keys had a good piece there today, listing out like the couple of teams that might have to consider whether getting to a league final will be the best thing for them. Like Mayo and Galway both have to travel for their Connacht openers. Would a league final just before that be the best thing logistically? There's a lot of things to manage with a split season. It's so condensed. The games are so bang, bang, bang. I think Monaghan are playing Cavan in the Ulster Championship. Maybe getting to a league final mightn't be the best thing to aim for there either. Now, that still leaves like the likes of Dublin and Kerry to battle it out for Division 1. But I think Division 2 is going to be where it could be very hot, because you have Donegal and Armagh in there. And I'd say Jim McGuinness in his first year back won't even want to hear the words Tailteann Cup. I saw, quotes from him today, willing to lie down in front of traffic for the Ulster Championship, very defensive of it. And he had a bullish start to his return in his second campaign as manager, with the controversy around the ban over the alleged, fielding of an ineligible player, then that getting overturned. There's there's a spotlight on him already, and it's going to be very interesting to see what he can do with Donegal. They really struggled, I think, in the aftermath of Michael Murphy retiring, and having him come back now could really reinvigorate things. Armagh obviously going down, they will be going to get straight back up to Division 1 as well. And also another thing that Colin Keys pointed out, in Munster, there's a potential pathway for, I think, Clare, Waterford and Tipperary, one of those three, to get to a Munster final, because Cork and Kerry could be playing in the semi-final. So that's a provincial finalist there. You could have another kind of a Roscommon Sligo scenario there, like maybe expect them to get to the Sam Maguire competition last year. So that's one slot that could go, making Division 2 really interesting. I think that's where we're going to see a lot of the fireworks this year. But again, I think it's going to, you might see a little bit of a slow burn. Like say Meath now, they're already in the Sam Maguire. Maybe they might take the league to sort of taper in and maybe pace themselves a little bit. Definitely interesting things to watch out for. But I would also be looking out for that possible distilling down of the league, because of having to try and protect players for the championship. I know Sean Kelly was speaking there to the media recently. He obviously had injuries last year and he still has them. I don't think he's played any Sigerson Cup football. That's something like that Galway have suffered, and maybe other teams are starting to look at that as well and see, do we need to approach the season differently?
Well, that's it. And like, especially when we talk about Division 1, Division 1 is the hardest division to predict, because it's a question of who's actually going to take it seriously, who's actually going to put their all into Division 1 to try and win it. Because you looked at Mayo there, for example, they won Division 1 last year, beaten by Roscommon the next week. Like, who wants to queue up to do that? And because when you win the league, it's very quickly ruled out by losing the next week. So with that being said, the Ancluiche Division 1 official predictions for 2024. So I'll give my 8 first, and then I'll ask you to give your 8. From 8 to 1, who's going to win? Now, I've done some research. I've had a look. Here's my official predictions for Division 1 for 2024. And remember, this is speaking before the league kicks off. I've looked at the fixtures. I've looked at how seriously I think everybody's going to take it. And this is what I think will happen. So, number 8, to go down bottom, I've gone with Tyrone. I just think there's Niall Sludden, Ronan Mack, a lot of key players leaving. Doesn't look like the happiest camp in the world. I could see them potentially struggling. Second bottom, I've gone Roscommon. I just think second season syndrome might kick in heavy with Davy Burke. Maybe the loss of players like Kieran Murta and everything like that. Like, he'd be a massive blow, him being gone. And then some of the Bridget's lads as well probably won't be at 100% for the opening round of the league, etc. So Brian Stack, Ben O'Carroll, like, they could lose a couple at the start and then struggle from there. Sixth, I've gone with Monaghan. I think they will survive again. They always seem to. Rory Began, of course, won't be as available as usual. And then on top of that, like, how fit will some of their players be? Kieran Hughes obviously gone as well, but I do think they'll still survive. I've gone with Mayo in 5th. I don't think Mayo will go as, pedal to the metal as they did last year for it, but I've gone Mayo 5th. Kerry, I'll go 4th. So I think Kerry not starting the Cliffords in the first games, I don't think they're going to take it as seriously as they have. I mean, Jack O'Connor pretty much said last year that he doesn't take the league seriously in an after-game interview. So yeah, Kerry number 4, I just think because of the Cliffords being gone, they're not taking it as seriously. Derry number 3. Now, like, obviously Mickey Hart's first year, I think he'll want to make a bit of a splash. They won the McKenna Cup, so you can't tell me that they're not taking titles seriously. The Glen boys, I think he'll give them a bit of a rest. I don't think he'll be as strict as Gallagher was with them last year, bringing Glass back in 4 days after losing to Crokes, pretty much. Second, I've gone with Galway. Galway, I think, will be determined to make a statement after a very disappointing season last year. I think they'll want to send out a statement of intent. And number 1, I've gone with Dublin. Now, I know that is bias, but let me explain why. Out of all those teams, I think we can all agree that Dublin have, probably the least to worry about in terms of getting caught in a provincial game immediately after a potential league final. So I do think Dublin will want to make a splash on returning to Division 1. I think they could do that by winning the league. Yeah, that's a pretty solid rundown. I think I would agree with you on Tyrone. I think, the losses, I think they could be in a little bit of trouble this year. Now, they're kind of residential Division 1 team. They don't tend to drop, you could be right. Roscommon, I don't know if I go with Roscommon second. I think Roscommon have done enough now to prove they're a good Division 1 team. I know you mentioned the Bridget's lads, and they'll obviously be crestfallen over. They basically handed it to Glen, and especially when they went into that game with nobody thinking they would win. And I know a lot of them said about their stature, their small team. Glen were expected to use their experience from the previous year and muscle them out. And I thought Bridget's did brilliantly. I think Glen were very fortunate to win, and Bridget's did a lot to help them. Like, I know Conor Glass's goal was brilliant, but Bridget's were caught napping for that goal. And then they got a big, boost from that. Like that, I think it was just after that Glass had that big, massive leap where he made the biggest jump at that stage of the game with all the lactic acid in his legs. I don't know if I've ever seen a player jump that high, but that was the turning point. Had they not gotten that, we'd be having a conversation about, is Conor Glass tired? Did Derry mismanage him last year? We would be completely restructuring this. We'd be talking about maybe the Bridget's lads coming back in and Roscommon maybe pushing on and getting to maybe a Division 1 final. I don't know if I quite say though that I think I'd put Monaghan closer to relegation. I think they're really going to miss Rory Began. He's going to be missing for a good chunk of the league heading to this the NFL recruitment thing, which is very interesting. I watch NFL myself.
the position he's going for is basically, for people who maybe don't watch it, for teams that get into what's called field goal range, which is basically like kicking for a free, we'll say, either after you scored a touchdown or you've run out of downs and you're basically kicking at the post. The ball gets hiked out, it's pinned up by someone who holds it down on their finger, and then a player comes in and boots it at the post. I think Rory could make a big impact there. He has a colossal boot. We've seen it already in Gaelic football, and like from the videos I've seen, like I saw a video come up on my TikTok or something of Rory basically pitching himself. Like, he's not going there just for the experience. I think this is something he's really targeting, and that would be a huge loss to Monaghan. He's such a versatile player. He's not just a goalie, he's like kind of like a quarterback. He comes up the pitch, he can score from distance, he can score from play. I've seen him score the odd, but he can kick from his hands in the middle of a game. That's a massive loss. I would nearly put them, and they were close to relegation last year.
Yeah,
I think, and you mentioned there Kieran Hughes, although Began is still a bigger loss. Huge. I don't know how they're going to replace him for the league, and I don't know what will happen if he does get picked. Preseason wouldn't be too far away in the NFL, and if he's a brand new guy, whoever might take him, they might want him out there pretty soon. He might not be. I have no idea, but he might not be available for any part of this season, which would be massive for Monaghan. And even just the hangover of last year, again coming up short, coming so close against Dublin, that might carry on into this year. I would probably put Tyrone Monaghan 8-7. I would put maybe, I might just write those down. I put maybe Roscommon. Okay, well, I might say Roscommon then at 6. Like maybe the Bridget lads coming back in. I know Ben O'Carroll had a great start to the league last year, but he made a couple of, I thought he lacked a bit of game intelligence in the game against Glen. I know in the second half he got blocked down. There was a guy inside. I was watching it and I was like, chip it in. And he tried to carry it on and ended up, a turnover. He got another turnover, ball was played into him and he kind of got muscled out over the ball, and then he kind of fell and committed a free. The goal chance in the first minute. This has been a bit harsh now, but because I hold him to a high standard. I think he can do very well for Roscommon. Really? But I presume they're going to get rested for a little bit. So the first couple of rounds of the league could be tough for them. Now it's Tyrone. They're playing Tyrone again in the first round. They played Tyrone, I think, in the first round last year as well. So they're two teams that are not, who might be in a little bit of a precarious position. So if Roscommon can get through that without the Bridget's lads and maybe just hold the tide for a little while and then get those lads back in, the likes of Brian Stack as well, I'm sure they're very disappointed from that, just with the manner of it when they were on the cusp of it and then just didn't finish it out. I might put them in at 6. Like I said, I think Mayo at 5. Yeah, I'd agree with you there. And I think Galway might be 4. I don't think they're going to. I think Mayo and Galway might be thinking about Connacht. Although Mayo would beat New York. I know New York had a great Connacht win last year over Leitrim. I don't think they're not going to do that to Mayo. Yeah. I don't think. Without being disrespectful, I don't think so. But that's a big trip. There's a lot of logistics involved. They need to get past that and move on from that. And then Galway have to go to London. London beat Mayo in the FBD League. I had an interview with their manager, Michael Maher. That's a team that's building, and they're building their kind of the non-Irish, the diaspora that come over and play football over there. They're starting to really build a base of the London-born kind of people who come from families that have moved over to London. That's what they're still starting to really expand on that. So Galway should go over to London feeling a little bit wary. So I don't know if a league final so close before that would be the best thing for them. Like you said, I think this could be a make or break season for Galway within the Pádraig Joyce era. He's into his 4th season, I think, in charge. They wouldn't have been happy. I know Joyce was quite bullish last year the way it went. They could have gone straight through to the quarterfinals. Didn't get that result against Armagh. Ended up playing against Mayo. Sean Kelly wasn't right, and he's talked about it recently that he basically played through an injury, and I'd say he didn't do anything that another player in his position wouldn't have done. If they lost, it's win or bust. He kind of had to play, but he wasn't right. So I'd say the overall thing maybe wasn't right last year. Shane Walsh, came in for criticism again. I think it was the Connacht final. He got a bit of stick for not kicking the lights out against Sligo, but I think he had a flu for that game. And he'll have a small bit more of a break, obviously, with Kilmacud not getting to the final. And even though they didn't maybe play great against Glen, he was the one that came up with big scores. That pass for the goal, do you remember? And then his the shot that I know he was going for a point, but it ended up as a goal. So I think he'll benefit from a little bit of a break. I know he took a big one last year. I think he went to Australia. I don't think it really worked out overall. And also, they've big players coming back this year. Kieran Malloy back from an ACL, Sean McKern back from a big injury, and Liam Silk is back from working abroad. They're huge guys to reintegrate into the team. And with Kelly being injured at the moment, there's a chance there for McKern to maybe slot back into full back. Could that create a potential to push Kelly further up the field? He can get scores. He has gotten scores. He has a great engine. Could maybe move him into the half back line or possibly even into the forwards. I think he's played in the forwards for Mike Cullen in the past. He's another guy who's really, really versatile. So there's a lot there. There's a lot of potential. I'd be very interested to see how Galway do this year. I think they will look to build some performances in the league, but I don't know if they'd be targeting a league final. I think they could do without that. So that's why I'm going to put them in there for. And then, I think it's going to be a Kerry Dublin final. So I'll just go 1-2. I think Kerry 2. And yeah, I think maybe I agree with you. Dublin will probably look to really reassert their place in Division 1 and pick up a league title there. So I'll put those two in at 1 and 2. And then maybe, Derry in a 3. I think.
Derry in 3.
Yeah.
Okay. So to recap on that, 8 we're both in agreement. We both think it's going to be Tyrone.
Yeah.
7 I've gone Roscommon and you've gone Monaghan. 6 I've gone Monaghan, you've gone Roscommon. So we just switched there. Yeah. 5 we agree on Mayo. 4 I've gone Kerry, you've gone with Galway. 3 we both agree that Derry are going to be there. 2 I've gone with Galway, you're going with Kerry, and we're both in agreement that Dublin will win the league upon their return. So 4 out of 8 we are in complete agreement of, and 4 out of the 8 we disagree on, but not quite massively. I mean, the Roscommon Monaghan one is potato. I mean, which one do you think is going to happen more so than the other one? But to run through it, Tyrone, looking at their season last year, it was very, very disappointing way to finish it up. They got blown away by Kerry. I haven't seen a Tyrone team go out like that in a very, very long time. Then in the off-season, Niall Sludden retires, Rona McNamee retires, Mickey Hart goes to Derry. They've had a really rough winter. Look, they do have some positives. Niall Devlin, Sean O'Donnell, good players coming through there. Rory Canavan obviously might settle in for a second year now at the top. I've picked him as my number 1 guy to watch this year. But what are you expecting from Tyrone in this league? It's a league where they really have to answer. They have Roscommon in the first game at Oma. They have to win that game to make a statement.
Yeah, and I think they're blessed to get Roscommon because that's a game that they can win. And with Roscommon going in without the Bridget's lads, I presume they'll have to rest them. I wouldn't expect them to want them back that soon. You mentioned Kieran Murtha is missing this year. He's a big loss to them. Now they got to the FBD League final, but you can't really read too much into that, and Roscommon wouldn't be reading too much into that either. So I think that's a good place to start for them to try and just recover a bit like that. The manner in which they lost to Kerry last year is not the way that they would want to finish the season. So they'll want to start strong. I really don't know what to expect from Tyrone this year. I think the league will kind of reveal all, but that's definitely a good team to be starting against. I wouldn't like to have seen them start their league maybe against Dublin or Kerry. I think that would probably put them in a worse position. I think Roscommon gives them a good chance to just open the lungs and blow off a bit of steam and yeah, just kind of settle a bit again after last year.
Yeah, and but it's this sort of thing as well. You're absolutely right when it comes to not knowing what to expect from Tyrone. It's very Tyrone to lose to Roscommon at home and then go to Croke Park and beat Dublin, or go away from home and beat a Kerry or beat a Galway. Like, to go to the very difficult ones and win, and slip up in the games when maybe they should get the result. But I personally think just everything around their camp tells me it might not go too well. Now, second bottom, we have Roscommon or Monaghan. And like we've ran through them, players that they're missing. The Bridges lads probably won't be back. Rory Beggin's away. It's two teams that have had a lot taken off them in the off season, and I think it will be a flip of a coin between the two of them as to who goes down with Tyrone.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, I am still going to side with Monaghan. I just don't know how you replace a player like Rory Beggin. He's too important, and he's too settled into that position. You know, I mean, I don't even know who they will turn to as their stand-in. No, it's a big opportunity for whoever takes it, but they'll be missing him big time. And I don't think Roscommon's losses are as big. Kieran Murtha being gone, it's a loss, no doubt, and not being without the Bridget's lads for a while is a difficulty as well. But I think they'll recover from that better than Monaghan. Now, at the same time,
Ultan Harney.
Hmm?
Any word on Ultan Harney?
I don't know.
He was big in Cunningham's last year. He was gone last year. Is he supposed to be back? Or?
I haven't heard anything about him now, but I think, yeah, obviously the big one is Kieran Murtha. That's the main one that's been reported, and I actually spoke to him as well. I did an interview with him, and he just wants to kind of put his time into other things. He got married this year. He just wants to give a bit more time to other things in his life. He's given a good few years to Roscommon. Obviously it's a blow, but I think they'll recover more than what Monaghan have to recover from. Now, that being said, Monaghan just have a way of clawing over the line in Division 1. Like last year they were facing the drop and just managed to do enough to stick around and retain it. So maybe I'm not giving that enough credit.
They relegated us the year previous.
Yeah. They just have a knack for it. They just are Division 1 survivors somehow. So maybe I'm not giving that enough credit, and maybe you'll be right, and Monaghan will stay up.
Well, this is the thing, is that I've picked them to go down the last couple of years, and hasn't happened. And then, of course, when they got Mayo in that final game, I just knew. I was like, they're going to do it again. They're going to stay up again. So I've learned my lesson. Maybe it'll be third time unlucky. Maybe I'll pick them to stay up this time, and they'll go down anyway. But fifth place, we both agreed, Mayo. Obviously, league champions last year. Kevin McStay still there, strapped in for a second season with them. What are you expecting from Mayo?
I think I'm expecting what I expect from them every year. They are, they'll always be there or thereabouts, no matter what. Like, the one thing, like, people might call them bottlers, that they have, like, the big perpetual question every year is this going to be Mayo's year? And they'll never be able to shake that off until they win the All-Ireland. But the one thing they always have is hope. Like, there's absolutely no getting rid of them. I think the last time that Mayo haven't really been some ways involved in the All-Ireland Championship, where they were really off the boil, is probably 2010, when my county Longford beat them in the qualifiers. And that was like, seen as this massive, like, low point to get to. And that's a long time ago. And this is, considering all the All-Ireland final defeats, and I'm sure there's lots of teams make some progress, and then one little knock and they regress entirely. But Mayo just always managed to stay around. Ryan O'Donoghue was on a press call there recently, and when he knew the question was coming, but he knew exactly what to say. Like, I wouldn't be here if I didn't think that we're close. That was the thing that kind of stood out to me when he was talking. Like, I'm not here just because I want to get Mayo gear. Like, I'm here because I believe we are close. Cillian O'Connor was speaking this week. Same thing, you know, they've had some big losses as well. Kevin McLaughlin, Harrison, they've had some big retirements as well. And like last year, the same thing. They had to go in with big names gone, and they just managed to do it. They just get on with it, and they always they just, you know, they knocked Galway out last year. Even though Galway would probably have been seen as the stronger team, but they just stick in. They always stick in. And I think they will in the league as well. But I've put them where I've put them because they have to kind of look towards the kind of championship. It's coming straight after that. And when you have to travel as far as they do, I think maybe that might discourage them a bit from trying to get to the final. But I don't think they'll get relegated. I think they've just always got the zip. They've always got a fresh, I don't know. They just, there's no beating their faith. They just, at least they believe it, and like if no one else will, they certainly do.
Well, that's it. And they have, you know, talented players coming through that I expect to make a mark in the league this year. Sean Moorhan's definitely one to keep an eye on. Then they've Jack Carney, Jordan Flynn that are going to get even more embedded in the team over the next coming championship as well. And look, Ryan O'Donoghue's thing was interesting because saying that if I didn't think we were good enough, I wouldn't be here. They've looked way off now the last 2 seasons. Kerry held them at arm's length for the entire quarterfinal in 2022, and Dublin mopped the floor with them last year in the quarterfinal. So it's something that they need to rebuild the belief this year now. They really need to, if they're going to go down fighting, like in a championship game. Don't, you know, get held at arm's length like you have the last 2 years, because that's key to building confidence in the project that you have out ahead of you. Now, 4th and 2nd, we've swapped. So we've gone Kerry and Galway in alternating positions. But Kerry, for you obviously mentioned about how the Cliffords are out for the first game. They're not going to be there. Like, that's important that they get some rest. Paddy's obviously succeeded David as captain. There's players to keep an eye on for Kerry in this league that I'll be very interested to see. Obviously, the main one for me is Dylan Gainey. Like, that he's impressed a lot in the preseason competitions. He was really, really good with Dingle as well. And with Paul Gainey getting on a bit, and with nobody really obviously there going to replace him, I'd be very interested to see how Dylan Gainey gets on, and indeed how Kerry look.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's a really good step to give the Cliffords a bit of a break. The fact that they are just kind of building back into into training now is I think that's a good sign that they are really kind of preserving them for the long road and looking towards, you know, integrating them more as it comes closer to the championship. I think, especially with, you know, you have to remember last year they had a tough year personally. It's that probably didn't get maybe as much attention as it maybe should have, especially when people were reflecting on David's performance in the All-Ireland final, because you know, that's the curse of being an out and out star on your own level, is that you're held to a different standard. And what David did in the final, if it was another player, would have been considered a brilliant game. Because it's David Clifford, it's subpar, or oh, he was quiet. Now, some people try to say that Mick Fitzsimons did a job with him. I don't think that's fair. I think David missed a lot. You know, there was shots that Mick just didn't get a block on, didn't actually touch him. Just David was a bit off, and that's the problem. If you're at that level, that's what people hold you to, and it's not. You know, I mean, you can't expect him to be in this upper stratosphere all the time. And people forget that pass for the Paul Gainey goal was like a masterstroke. But you do one thing wrong when you're him, that's the burden that's on his shoulders all the time. And now perhaps the Kerry management have just decided to give him a little bit of a break. And Fossa not getting as far as they did the previous year, I think probably contributed to that a little bit, that they just needed a bit more time off. But I think now that Dublin are back in Division 1, I think they would really enjoy playing them in the league final, because look, like I mentioned with the Munster Championship, if they get to the Munster final, it's not going to be a big test. you know, the way it's structured. And I think the chance to play a team like Dublin at any point with some silverware on the line would be good for them. That's why I think it will be Kerry and Dublin in the final. Like Kerry Derry in the first round would be a brilliant start. It would be a really good test for both teams. Obviously, Derry going in with Mickey Hart as the manager. I assume he's going to give the Glen lads a bit of a rest. Now, at the same time, I'm not sure. I don't know if you saw that picture of Conor Glass the day after the final, and he was in like cycling garb or run triathlon kind of gear or something. Now, I mean, I'm not judging how somebody decides to celebrate their own All Ireland. I'm not saying he should be out on the beer if he doesn't want to, but I just thought like, wow, he's just after winning an All Ireland, and he's already it just sort of like suggests to me that he's already not, I don't want to say parted in a disrespectful way, but like is starting to look at what could he do with Derry this year, because there's a lot of promise there. And with Mickey Hart in charge, like he obviously was willing to walk away from Louth in acrimonious circumstances because he can see that Derry are not far off. He can see that back-to-back All-Ireland semi-finals, back-to-back Ulster champions, they are really on fire, and there's a brilliant opportunity there. And now with Glen finally getting over their hurdle, that will put a huge fire in their bellies. Like maybe Mickey Hart might play them on Sunday because, you know, you have the momentum behind them, the adrenaline of winning Ireland. He might play them. I doubt it. I'd say he'll have more freedom to give them a bit of a rest this year, maybe compared to last year. But I would still say I wouldn't go so far as to say that Derry will have enough to get to a league final. I think it will be Kerry Dublin.
Yeah, but like when you look at the McKenna Cup, Derry's team in that final, McKenna Cup, was a serious team. Shane McGuigan played, Brendan Rodgers played, Garrett McKinless played, Owen McAvoy, like Pádraig McGrogan was in there. Like it was a very strong Derry team that they put out to make sure that they got the win. Like Donegal put out a strong team as well. I actually think Derry will take that game against Kerry in the first round of the league. I just think it's a bad matchup for Kerry, and I think Derry will take it. Galway, on the other hand, you put them fourth. You said they're going to keep one eye on the Connacht Championship. Last year, they really, really fell short of what a lot of people expected them to achieve. This year, what are you expecting from them?
As I said before, I think this is a big make or break, a potentially big make or break year for Galway, just because they are now heading for a fourth season with Pádraig in charge. They've the lads coming back. I think the league would be a great opportunity for them to build their way back into the team and get back up to, like, especially for Malloy, for McKern, for Silk. They've been away. They need to get back up to speed and get back up to inter-county standard. That's a great opportunity for them. But how will that go? That's a big question to answer. And look, Galway Mayo is always a grudge match, whether they're playing in the first round of the league, Connacht final. There's always a needle between them, and because I think they will both do enough to stay up in Division 1. I just don't know. I don't think they will target a league final. I think they'll just do enough to get performances in the legs and kind of build more toward the business side of things further on the championship or further on the season. But I think this is a big year for Galway in the Poor Choice project. And I'd say he's very bullish after the way things went last year. They want to get it right, get it done right. No waiting, or no like putting themselves in a precarious position like they did last year. If they having to go to a preliminary quarterfinal, they will want to go Route 1. Yeah,
no, I do agree with you. And then that brings us to the top. Dublin, we're predicting them to win the league. I do predict them to beat Galway. I'm like slightly regretting not putting Derry second, to be honest. Having talked more, I think Derry are going to take the league super serious, more so than most other teams. But I do think Dublin will win the league when all said and done. And like as we said, this is a big year. Like who knows who's going to be sticking around? Who knows if Cluxton will be around? Who knows if Mannion will be sticking around. Like, it's a tough one to know. The Kilmacud Crokes lads, when will they return? Theo Clancy, for me, is someone that we have to play in the league. I think the main objective for this league for Dublin has to be to get Theo Clancy and get him some minutes, because he looks born to play fullback for Dublin. He's been outstanding in the club championship, not just this year, but last year as well. And yeah, I'm expecting Dublin to take this league super serious, prove that we're a Division 1 team, and the best way to do that is to go and win it.
Yeah, I would say so too. Now that they're back up, they'll want to remind everybody of how strong Dublin can be in the league. They got to the World Cup final, I know, and Longford beat them. I don't think they're going to be too worried about that. I'd say they use that competition to build depth in the team, explore the peripheries of it. They're obviously going into it now on the back of Dean Rock's retirement. Now, Dean Rock wouldn't have been in the central plans for Dublin, as we could see, but he's still he is a loss because of his free take, and maybe he could have still. I was a little bit shocked. I thought he might stick around for one more year and maybe be a player that Desi could turn to last 5-10 minutes of the game to pop a free over the bar or something. But he obviously felt he'd run his race was run and he wanted to step aside. And I'm sure he was a big presence in the dressing room as well. I think we forget how important leadership players can be when they're not playing, what they can do for the lads around them. That is a loss for them going into this year. Will, again, Cluxton, that could be a big question mark. I wouldn't be surprised if they did the same thing they did last year and pretend he's not coming back and then spring him at the last minute, like he's coming out of the forest into the battlefield. So that's a big question of whether or not he's going to play a role in it as well. Winning the All-Ireland last year and reaffirming their place is a big thing for Dublin, and I think they might treat the league the same way. Like, they have the depth in the panel to give the Kilmacud lads a bit more of a break, get through the first. They're playing Monaghan in the first round. I would be worried for Monaghan going into that game. I think Dublin could come away with a big win there.
Yeah, no, I am confident in Dublin this year. I think we could do some good results now in this Division 1 campaign. Remind everybody that we're a Division 1 team. I don't have the same confidence towards the championship, but towards the league, I think we should be aiming to win it, to restake our claim as one of the best sides around in terms of the league.